Okay, Salaam alaikum. Not sure how many people I have on now, but maybe I'll get those people who I never see at the normal times when I am on. Hope you are well. Sorry about the absence for the past month or so. There is a reason for it. I've been traveling. I never expected actually that I wouldn't have time to put a couple of streams together during this vacation, but it's just been very hectic indeed. Um, but alhamdulillah, I'm here now. So I thought I'd just hop on and give a quick update, what's been happening and where I've been and what I've been doing. So um, as I said, I've been away traveling with the family, me, the missus, the kids, um, back to the UK. Um, I spent about a week or so in a cottage in the countryside, just a small vacation in the English countryside. Went, I'd had my daughters do some horse riding, and it was really nice. Um, then I just caught up with old friends and family, and that sort of thing. One interesting thing is I got to um, meet Mufti Abu Layth in Birmingham. So I went up to Birmingham and got to meet up with him. I've been speaking with him quite a bit on WhatsApp, and we've had a few interactions in that way. And yeah, I requested that when I come to the UK this summer, if it would be if possible, we could meet up. I've got family in Birmingham, so when I went up to see them, I arranged it so that I could meet up with Mufti Abu Layth. It was a really nice conversation we had. Um, a very long conversation. We were there from I think it was 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the morning. We were just talking about various things. Among the things we discussed was a number of ideas, but there was one thing in particular that because I've been meaning to do. He's invited me before to do a mind trap with him on his podcast, The Mind Trap, and I've always said yes, of course, but it's just never been able to. I've been able to arrange it very well, and it sort of just slid in the sidelines. But when we were discussing a few things, he asked me, would you willing to come on and speak about these things on Mind Trap? Um, so I said yes, of course. It's a very controversial thing. So I asked him, to make sure that he plays devil's advocate in order to be able to say what I want to say in the right way. It's basically about the quote unquote wife beating verse. So I explained my full take on that to him, which I haven't explained anywhere else, to be honest, except privately with a few other people. Um, just because, as I've said before, that we're living in a very gender crazy time, and I want to be understood properly. But having him there, face to face, somebody that you can just bounce off ideas with, it's easier to explain. And he liked the way I explained it, and some things he found a bit shocking, but I think he 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 understood and appreciated it. And he asked me, can you just come onto Mindtrap and we can discuss this among other things. And I said yes, of course. So hopefully look out for that within the next month or so. When I get back home, I'm no longer traveling and things have settled down. We'll try to sort that out. Somebody else I met was a very old friend, very dear friend, in Birmingham. Somebody who I've known for years back. I mean, he's been on a journey as much as I have, a very long religious journey, and he's in a place, mashallah, because I don't call, I don't make many phone calls to people usually, either family or friends or stuff. Even my closest friends here, I'll go months without calling or anything. And when we meet up, it's like it's like we haven't been apart. It's wonderful. So there's somebody who I haven't seen in 3 years, 4 years, but we met up, and I got to see where he was, sort of like spiritually, religiously, and I'm very impressed that he's sort of like in a place very similar to me. He's sort of like um, come to come back to basics. Has a very nice, simple, elegant, beautiful view of religion and how to go about it. He's sort of aloof from sort of the circles and the religious gatherings and stuff that we used to be involved in. He's been more aloof in that and has started to sort of more penetrate the simplicity of Islam. In the end, it's just to make you a good person. As Hassan Malik used to say that insanan takun musliman. By the way, we have some people on now. I just want to make sure, is my sound okay, and the and it's not lagging, I hope, because I'm using my other laptop, which previously used to give me some lag. I am going to I've made a decision on buying a MacBook, the M1s, for video editing mainly. Last time I was looking for a laptop, it just gets annoying, to be honest. I go out and I look, and then there's so many options. I just get fed up for mobile phones. Okay, sound is good, excellent. Thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody else who's with me. So hopefully I'll be able to get a M1, and I'll also be able to actually start that editing that very hefty series of videos I want to make on that verse, actually, the wife beating verse, as it's called. Hopefully I'll be able to do it in around, I don't know, maybe 10. I'm going to try to make it into shorter videos, 10 half-an-hour videos. It doesn't take that much to explain it, to be honest. I mean, at the end of that, I'm going to make a very short 5-minute video just to explain it. But sometimes you need to sort of lay the groundwork for something which has become so controversial in the world where these things are very controversial. Even anybody seen those videos going around of that person called Matt Walsh, who made that documentary, asking what is a woman, right? And he just goes and asks people what is a woman, and there are people who not, who won't. They obviously know what the answer is, but they can't say it. Anyway, so hopefully I'm going to have a new system, and I'll be able to start on that series of videos. But as I said before, this person. So I met Mufti Abu Layth up in Birmingham, and I also met an old friend of mine. And what he does, he's involved in healing. He's been involved in healing for a very long time now. A holistic view of healing. He actually asked me to do some research on a word, which is basically the name of his sort of clinic. It's called the Afia healing. Afia, from the word Afia, and he wanted me to look into this word in the Quran the and in the hadiths, and sort of like try to get a Quranic perspective on this word. He says because he thinks that the word means holistic healing, holistic well-being, so spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. That's afia. And at first glance, it seems a very good insight into it. But he asked me to actually put together some research for him, so I'll do that. But I also asked him, look, how would you like to come on to this channel to discuss the healing? Because he spoke to me about it on a number of levels. How he views it. And when it comes to health and healing and the human body, and there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, there's some very interesting things that we don't get. I mean, everybody I think has heard of the placebo effect, and how that cures pretty much anything can be cured with the placebo effect. You give somebody a false drug, just some sugar or something that it's not has no active ingredient in it, and the person just basically has self-belief. They heal. They think it's a real drug or real medicine, and they heal. So everybody's heard about that, but what he mentioned mostly was something closer to the flip side of that. And on one aspect, everybody knows that stress can make you sick, right? I experienced that for the first time maybe last year or the year before that, because the thing about it is that you can be a calm person and not think you're stressed, but in fact you are stressed. So that sort of thing happened to me, and it affected me health wise. But he talks about in more depth, talking about certain emotional states, certain emotional baggage that you carry around with you for a long time, and how that can impact different parts of your health. Um, I'll let him explain it. Hopefully, if I get him on. But I found it very interesting, and I saw parallels in it with people around me, and even with myself. And when I think back in certain times in the past where I've been in certain, I've had certain emotional sort of like baggages, things where like and I've never had resentment, but things which have happened which I found difficult to understand. Things that happened in which I found difficult to understand, you know, um, and how in that moment where something sudden and difficult happens, a certain sickness comes with that, or a certain pain somewhere comes with that. And it's very interesting what he mentioned, things like that. Like for example, somebody who's carrying a lot of resentment and a lot of anger, which they aren't able to get out. They will have a lot of problems in their colon, and going to the bathroom, and that's the low constipation is the lowest form of that, but it can go much higher to things which are much worse. um, and of course, I mean, I've got a um, physiology pharmacology background, so I asked him, how does that work when it comes to pathogens and microbes, because we know these are things which are cause a lot of diseases. Anyway, um, I'll let him hopefully come on, and we can speak about that. So that's somebody I'm hoping to have on as well. Um, there are a few other things. I mean, I've mentioned before that I would like to get do some sort of. I also mentioned this to Mufti Abu Layth. He wasn't as keen of the idea of speaking with sort of like I'm keen on speaking to non-Muslim people of the book. So get some. It would be great to have somebody like Rabbi Tovir, or somebody like that. A rabbi, or and somebody from the Christian side. Not to talk about. It's not really about build. I mean, it's sort of building bridges, but I would like to discuss. Like for example, I know in the Jewish community, there's also a group called the Karaites. Okay, basically like the Quranists for us. Okay, people who focus on the Torah and things like this. So I would like to speak about to somebody from that community, and how that is involved within Judaism. And other things, just sort of things like what could the different communities do to actually strengthen each other in terms of faith in this time where faith has been attacked, and people's faith in their religion is low. I don't like those debates that Muslims have with Christians or Jews. I mean, these are not the we're not even supposed to debate with them except by the most beautiful way, as the Quran says. So the Quran says, لا تجادل أهل الكتاب إلا بالتي هي أحسن. Do not even have debates or argue with Ahl al-Kitab except in the most beautiful or best way. Reason why is because there's already a lot of commonality, a lot of bridges between us, and you can break them by the way that some people speak, um, have these debates. They see in Speaker's Corner, or the Zakir Naik type of thing. People leave those things, not and all that's happened is they've been pumped up with their own sort of support for their side. We won. We won this debate, or etc. You don't leave those kind of things feeling more spiritual, like you want to pray, like you'd like to go fast or give charity. You don't feel that. Okay, you leave those things being pumped up with belligerence against the other side, and that's it. I mean, Ahmed Didat was the one who sort of started it all. He sort of got away with it because he was a very charismatic person. He was like this old grandfatherly figure. But even he sometimes would be very rude and disrespectful, in the way he addressed um, the other side. So those are not the sort of things I want to get into. Um, so I mean, Mufti Abu Layth wasn't really feeling that, as we'd say. But we did discuss something else, which is trying to get more collaborations between those of those who are more forward thinking. So like himself, like Dr. Khalid Abul Fadl from the Usuli Institute, um, Shabir Ali, Dr. Shabir Ali, anybody who has a bit more of an open understanding, because one of the verses in the Quran which talks about, it says الذين كفروا, and I was speaking to Mufti about this. It says الذين كفروا بعضهم أولياء بعض, that those who have kafaru, or those who have a propensity of kufr, sometimes I like to say for those words, they are um, allies or patrons or supporters of one another. Then it says إلا تفعلوا, if you don't do it, إلا تفعلوا, if you other people who are not like that, so the believers or the enlightened people, if you don't do that, تكون فتنة في الأرض وفساد كبير, there will be a fitna on the earth and great fasad. So one of the reasons why, if you look around this, if you accept that around the world right now there's fitna on the earth and great fasad, one of the reasons for that is that we are not, the more enlightened people are not um, supporters and allies of each other in the way that الذين كفروا are. And you see that a lot. I mean, you see that in the religious circles. I mean, you find that the people who are more forward thinking, who are independent thinkers, who are not just tied down to the herd, they don't really communicate or help each other as much. I mean, it's something that even Hassan al-Maliki noted to us a long time ago, that for example, him, and before, when Adnan Ibrahim hadn't sort of a little bit fallen from grace, um, him, these were both two very forward-thinking people, right? But they never used to communicate very often. They never used to like help each other often, or dialogue very often, or come together very often. And the same thing, you look at Dr. Khalid Abul Fadl, he's sort of like doing his own thing. Mufti Abu Layth is sort of doing his own thing. Dr. Shabir Ali is sort of doing his own. There's not this sort of collaborating between these parties. You know what I mean? Whereas if you look at sort of, because الذين كفروا, I say that this doesn't just apply to non-Muslims, this can apply to Muslims. Whereas if you look at sort of like the more fanatical da'wah element within among the Muslims, they're all helping each other, right? You find them in each other's YouTube channels. They have these panels where they're all together. They visit each other's channels, help each other, support each other. Recommend each other. Right? They are like that. Okay, and that seems to be the default state of الذين كفروا is بعضهم أولياء بعض. That's their default, where it's not the default of sort of like the more enlightened believers. It's not the default. But God is saying that if you don't do likewise, like those who are الذين كفروا, if you don't do like their default state, if you don't also help and support each other, there will be fitna on the earth and great fasad. And one of the issues of that is it's sort of a natural thing. I mean, I mentioned also this to Dr. Khalid Abul Fadl when I had a Zoom meeting with him before Ramadan. Him and his lovely wife Grace, we had a Zoom meeting, and I sort of mentioned this as well to him, that and it's because sort of the enlightened thinker, the person who's forward thinking, who thinks for themselves, who's independent, it's sort of like one of the side effects of being that is that you don't need anybody else, right? Because you can be with the Quran by yourself, and you don't need to have you don't need validation from a herd of followers or other people who are doing a similar work to you, or you don't need them, right? So part of the side effects of that, of the person who is a forward thinking or a free thinker, is that you become very you just rely on yourself. You become independent, so you don't need anybody else. So you don't reach out to others who are also independent, and so all of these independent people are there doing their own thing, and not really creating a network between themselves which can stand against the fasad and the fitna, right? Whereas the others, they, first of all, they're all like a similar herd. Anybody, for example, the Salafi da'wah, Salafi Wahhabi da'wah gangs, which are online and on YouTube, they're all the same, right? And they're all promoting exactly the same ideas. is. They're all telling you to believe exactly the same thing. Okay, they have a set of dogmas that you must follow, and you step outside of them, or even among themselves, if they step outside of those dogmas, they will shoot each other down, right? So they a lot of the time they have their eyes on each other to make sure that they are all stepping in line. It's an interesting thing. So I mentioned to Mufti Abu Layth he would be winning if I could try to set up something where maybe once a month, once every 2 months, I could get sort of like a panel of some Muslims, some forward-thinking Muslims like himself, like Dr. Khalid, like Shabir Ali. If we could all meet, if they could all meet like in one panel, like sort of like it's a live stream like this, and maybe have and discuss, various points, or just to talk, just to create that interconnectedness as a starting point at least, and then from there we could see where it could go. And he said, yes, I would love to get on board of something like that. Okay, so that's basically all the updates I have. Nice to see that I've actually got 8 people online now watching. I didn't think right now where I am it's pretty late. Maybe I'm getting the people who sometimes never get to come on at this time. Let me check the chat very quickly. And by the way, anybody who would like to come on, you're more than welcome. The link is in the chat. And if you want to come on for a quick chat or just to say hello, come on. So just check quickly. So Nasser, very good. Yusuf, Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, got to have it was actually very close to where my relative in Birmingham lives. It wasn't far. It was like a 5-minute drive. He's very accommodating, by the way. I mean, he's in person, he's a fantastic person. He loves to just connect with people and meet with people and talk. You can sense that from him anyway, right? He's a very extroverted person, but he loves to meet with people and anybody who's got some thought. He would love to meet them and speak with them. He even asked me, do you know anybody else I could meet with? And I mentioned to him a couple of other people. Did we record anything? No, we didn't record anything, to be honest. We didn't record. We were just sort of freelancing speaking. Yeah, it was very interesting. Like I said, we started from around 9, and we just carried on until around 6 o'clock in the morning. Halfway through, we were going to call it quits, and then something came up, and we just carried on. Yes, inshallah. So I will, on the mind trap, I'll try to do the best I can anyway to explain that verse, because it isn't such a difficult thing. It's just that most people they rather than accept it as it is and then say, okay, then why is God commanding this? What is the wisdom behind it? What is thing? A lot of most of the time people are just saying no, there can't be any wisdom in it. That it's we and so they end up trying to just explain it away, right? To say it means something else. It doesn't mean hit. And there's a very nice YouTube channel. If you all know it, it's called Learn Quranic Arabic. Very nice channel. Highly recommend it. I think I've shared one of the videos in the community section before. But he a while back he put a video, a couple of videos on this verse, right? And he introduced something which I think it's just a very slippery slope to introduce. So introduce there's this grammatical thing in Arabic, right, where the harf jar, which are these words which mean ala, fi, these so in or upon or these kind of words. Okay, in certain sentences they are sort of like removed. They can be removed. Okay, just for eloquence, like for brevity's sake. And what he's saying is that this verse has deleted harf jar, like he said it's, and we're supposed to add the harf jar ourselves. So it says, according to him, watch the video yourselves. We say according to him, اضربوهن على مثل, for example. So you're supposed to add something in it, which changes the meaning, which would change the meaning. And I said, this is a very difficult thing to push, because now you're sort of opening up the idea that people can look elsewhere in the Quran and say, okay, there's a missing harf jar here, and I'm going to add this meaning and this meaning here and that meaning there and that meaning there. It starts to make it starts to make the Quran seem as if something which is not complete. But anyway, you can have a look at that. But I mean, that he's an example of that, because in his video right at the beginning, he says that it can't be. It can't be that God would say a husband should physically discipline or beat his wife. He just says that outright. That can't be right. We would not expect that from the wisdom of Allah, who knows men and knows women and knows relationships. Would we expect that? Of course not. So it can't be true. No, that is not. See, I would, one of our responses to him, I said, no, it's you who doesn't understand women or the dynamic between the men and women and stuff. And often they don't, right? I mean, a lot of the scholars, a lot of the religious leadership, they're not very experienced with women, right? Those who come to become like that, they're not people who have had, alhamdulillah, which is good. They're not people who have had, lots of relationships with women or anything like that. A lot of them, sort of like the mid-level or high, I don't know, mid-level or not, but muftis and imams, or they're married from arranged marriages, right? They've had arranged marriages, and at least in the sort of the more ethnic Muslim communities, right? From the subcontinent, or even from a lot of the Arab world, there's arranged marriages, and a lot of these scholars, and they're like this. They're not people who understand sort of the dynamic and the psychology and the different things and the different types of women. They're sort of sheltered in that kind of way, I think. Let me see the chat. My sound is good. This was before. Yeah, exactly. If it takes an hour to explain a verse, yeah, then it's not. It's a very. I agree with that. It shouldn't take an hour to explain a verse, right? It shouldn't take an hour to explain a verse. But sometimes it takes an hour to remove the misconceptions around it before you can actually explain the verse itself. The verse can be very, very simple, and what it's saying is very, very simple. But a lot of the misconceptions around it, and sometimes the environment, even around you, is not conducive to being able to explain things in a straightforward way. I mean, take that documentary I mentioned. Matt Walsh, right? A whole documentary on one question: what is a woman? Does it take a long time to answer that question? What is a woman? Well, now it does take a long time for some people. They'll say, I can't answer that question. I don't know what a woman is, right? Some people will give that answer. And is that because it's a difficult thing to define what is a woman, or is it because of the environment around it now? And so it's simply, so that's why, like I said, hopefully when I make this series of videos, inshallah, if I get around to it, it'll be, I'll try to make them not too long, 30 minutes or something, different parts, put it all together. And then I'll make one final video will be like 5 minutes explaining this verse because it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. Um, yeah, the marvelous Quran. I don't know what he says. Dr. Hani, right? Um, you see that? Sorry, let me put that up. Show. There we go. Have you had a chance to listen to a marvelous Quran YouTube channel by Dr. Hani? I haven't, to be honest. I haven't had a chance. He's got so much. If you have something specific to recommend for me to watch, I'll definitely give it a watch and give it a listen. But from the things that I've listened to, um, I just found it very muddled, you know. And I put a where is it when Mufti Abu Layth talked about him, I put a comment on the video that he talked about. I said the thing that worries me about marvelous Quran is that people that go to it as sort of like their last ditch effort to save their faith in the Quran, you know. And so, but it's so wild and so out there that ultimately that could backfire, right? So imagine somebody who has been through, I don't know, he spent years in the sort of the more hardline fanatical sect of any madhab, doesn't matter, and sort of they've finally broken free from that, okay, and so they went to, I don't know, um, they will go to different things. For example, maybe they go to Dr. Shahrur, right? And then maybe they're fed up with him, and then sort of like they slowly start to say, okay, no, I'm just gonna, forget about all of the hadiths, or I just want the Quran, right? And that's a great thing. But then let's say then they turn to Dr. Hani, a marvelous Quran, and then they go through that. Maybe in the beginning they're sort of like you could be mesmerized by what he's saying, um, but a lot of it seems so out there that I think that a lot of people would be sort of like more in cognitive dissonance. So they'd be listening to him, nodding their heads, yes, saying, "Yeah, this is fantastic, this is brilliant, and mind blowing new research and stuff like that." But it's so far basically from what you can get from a straight reading of the Quran, that you need to know this whole Abrahamic locution, as he calls it, to even understand the Quran, and that and without it, and he's the only person who's got the keys to this, right? And then it just you can just lose faith very easily with the Quran completely, right? Um, Whereas, I mean, I, for example, say that any translation of the Quran will do, right? You can pretty much any translation. I'd avoid the Muhsin Khan, just because it has a lot of additions in the things, right? So it will say things, and other ones which I like, it will say things like, um, those who follow vain amusements, and they put in brackets like music and art or things like this. They put a lot of things like that in the brackets which are not there in the Arabic. Um, so I'd avoid those. But apart from that, any translation of the Quran, as long as you don't dwell too much on intricacies which require the language, but have a broader view, um, very easy to be guided with the Quran. Very, very easy. You don't need any Abrahamic locution. You don't need any of that. A basic translation from anybody, and just a bit more, a little bit of critical thought, and it's fine, right? I'm pretty sure of that. So yeah, but if you have any suggestions, maybe I'll once I get to the bottom of the comments, um, or link them at the end of this video, and I'll try to have a listen. Yeah, somebody says here conspiracy theories. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, Hector. How are you? Excellent to see you. Yeah, emotional baggage. We can't let it go. We don't understand it. It kills us. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that, like I said, health. There are things in uh, when it comes to living things and life and we just don't get them. There are things we just don't understand. This is something which I've mentioned to people. I don't know if I mentioned it on this channel before, but this is like sort of a more personal story. So you know how there's this I don't know if anybody knows, but there's this sort of like Arab saying, or sort of like this Arab saying that they say to like pregnant women, right? Don't look at don't look at ears. Sorry, don't look at rabbits, otherwise your child will have, when you're pregnant, otherwise your child might have long ears, right? So I don't know if this is these kind of proverbs and these kind of ideas are around in other cultures. I think they are. I've heard it from others as well. Of course, that seems ridiculous, right? It seems absolutely ridiculous. But something made me understand it in a different way, which happened to me personally. So my one of my sisters, my younger sister, when she was very very young, she went to this Bunsen burner. So when you burn incense, so you put some coal and put some incense. So she was little, she was a toddler, and she walked up to the burner. It was on the table, and she pulled it down, and landed on her sort of like her neck area, okay, and left it a burn there. And what had to happen is that she had to have some skin grafting. Some skin was removed from her thigh and put on her chest to help it heal. Okay, but she ended up having a small mark there. So this is my younger sister when she was so this is not a genetic thing. It's something which happened to her. Now, years later, when we were in me and my wife were in Middle East, we've already had our first daughter, my eldest, and my sister came to visit us. And my wife at the time, we didn't know if she was pregnant or not. So we left her with left my sister with my eldest daughter, and we went to the clinic to have a test. And when she came back, when we came, the test proved positive. My wife was pregnant, um, and so she came back. So my wife found out that she was pregnant at this time when my sister was with us, and she spent the next couple of weeks. My sister was with us, and they spent a lot of time together. Lo and behold, of course, my sister flies off, but um, 8 months. When is it? 7 months later, um, my daughter's born, and she not only is she very close. She grew up to have almost a splitting image of my sister. Um, she's sort of like changed a bit away from her now, but she has a mark in exactly the same place as my sister did. So in the same place on her sort of like on her chest, she has a little birthmark there, exactly the same as the mark that my sister got um, from a burn. So it's these are very strange things that happen, and it made me think of these proverbs that the old women proverbs that they used to give, like the old woman would tell pregnant women, don't look at this, so don't spend too much time with this or that, because these things can affect the baby, right? These things, is there a kind of link in that kind of way? Is there some sort of like All right, I have no idea what just happened there. My internet just went out, and I don't know where what I was saying at the time. Anyway, sorry about that. Glad to see there are still some people there. When did I cut off? When did I cut off? I'm getting messages. Are these people telling me that I had cut off? Oh, we're still waiting. Okay. Thank you, Abdul Nasser. All right. Okay. But anyway, yeah. So that's just a short story. I don't know how much you caught of that, but it is very interesting, I think. The whole issue of healing as well, that's interrelated with that, I think. The placebo effect and how that can cure your body, and how emotions can impact your body itself, in terms of sicknesses. So the emotional baggage, it can kill us, definitely. What do you think about the Kaaba? I mean, we make sujood to a stone. They claim it's from paradise, but it's about 9th century. So it's not about. I mean, we don't make this sujood. It's not about the black stone. That's I think there was some. I think it was Dan Gibson who made this idea that whoever has the black stone has the Kaaba. And so when the black stone was stolen sometime in history, they went out, they made a new Kaaba somewhere else. No, the Kaaba is basically the spot, right? The Kaaba and where it was built. It's about the spot. It's just to give us direction. It's just a sense of unity, right? Sort of all of humanity. You need a direction. You as a physical being, right? To have a direction to face, because you face somewhere. You can't not face a direction. So to have one qibla, one place to pray, for this ummah and for mankind now, it's the Kaaba, right? It's the Kaaba because it's linked to Adam alayhi salam. It's linked to our forefather Adam and to Ibrahim, and if you had been born before then, before Islam, right, you would have faced a different qibla, and it's not an issue, right? It's not an issue. And if you don't know which way the Kaaba is, you can pray any direction, right? It's just to give the ummah a sense of unity, that you all face the same place. So we're not making sujood to the stone or to the thing. And I've mentioned this before in terms of what people think shirk is, right? So a lot of people talk about. In fact, I just answered a comment pretty recently about it. I've mentioned before that I don't think shirk is not a quote unquote sin, as in dhanb. The word in the Quran which is dhanb. Shirk is not a dhanb, right? Shirk is something which is which commands these kind of things. So, like saying, for example, because I've said this before, that shirk is not itself in and of itself. It's not a deed, right? It's like saying love. Love is not a deed, but there are acts of love that you do. Okay, oppression itself is not a deed, but there are acts of oppression, right? So when the Quran talks about the mushrikeen um, 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 uh, killing their children, um, out of basically the idols, getting the mushrikeen to kill their children. Okay, killing children here is not is not um, is not shirk, right? It's an act of shirk because of their obedience to their idols. Okay, but killing children in and of itself, that's a deed. That's a deed. It's not necessarily shirk, right? It can be done in accordance to shirk or not in accordance with shirk. So I've mentioned this before again, that the actual bowing down and prostrating to inanimate objects, that is not shirk. Okay, it's who are you listening to when you do that? Who are you obeying when you do that? Right? Who's the one you are listening to? And that's why in the Quran it says, yushriku billahi ma lam yunazzil bihi sultana. Right? Do you do shirk with regards to that of which God has sent down no authority, right? So when, for example, people say, okay, should we the obedience to the Messenger of Allah, right? Is that shirk? No, because Allah has given him sultan. You are supposed to obey him. Okay, you're supposed to obey him. And why in the Quran Allah says, that the Prophet is commanded to say, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ لِلرَّحْمَنِ وَلَدٌ فَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْعَابِدِينَ. If Allah had a son, then I'm the first one to worship his son. Right? If Allah had a son, then I'll be the first to be not worship, to be an actual real ibadah to him, servitude. Okay, so shirk is all about servitude. It's all about being in submission and like a slave. That's why Allah puts the examples in the Quran when He talks about the mushrikeen and those who are mushrikeen in comparison to those who are not. He gives the example of a person who owns a slave and another person who owns a slave. Whereas the first person, the slave is completely devoted to his master, and the other one, the slave, is devoted to many people other than his master. Okay, God gives these examples. That's to let you know what shirk is. Uh, prostrating to a stone. What does that do? Well, it's a harmless thing, right? Just to prostrate to a stone. So what? Prostrate to a stone. Prostrate to the Kaaba. Prostrate to. What does it do? Okay, in terms of sin, of evilness. What is the actual evil of it? Right? So in of itself, it's just stupidity. It's not evil. It's not something big, which is why the Quran talks about it as basically being something stupid, right? You know, um, these things neither harm no neither benefits nor harm. Okay, these are just names. The Quran says about the stone and wooden idols. These are just names. You've named them, you and your forefathers. There's nothing. Allah has sent down to them no sultan, right? Um, so it's not. It's the issue. We don't do sujood. Um, to the stone or anything. We are doing sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we're just facing a qibla. That's all. He said I had a hard time understanding Dr. Hani. He doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I mean like I said, I don't understand him either. Um, United good people, excellent ideas, yes, inshallah. Yeah, better be on the manhaj, otherwise you won't have the support of the others, right? Yeah, Dr. Abu Fadl is an amazing person. Um, Hector, yeah, you've been listening to him for 5 years. He's an amazing person. I mean, this project of the Illuminate, right? Uh, where he's doing these sort of thematic um, readings of the Quran. They're amazing. I haven't been able to listen to many of them. I've listened to a few of them. I recently listened to the one about Surah Al-Tahrim, and he talks about the whole, the narrations surrounding it, is it honey? What did the Prophet make haram on himself, right? Was it honey? Was it, Maria? Was it this? Was it that? And I really liked that. In the end, he said, it doesn't matter. First of all, none of the narrations make any sense. And it's true, none of the narrations around that issue make any sense when in terms of the Quranic narrative. And in the end, the Quran doesn't mention it because it doesn't matter. Um, these were sort of something private in the Prophet's house, from which God wanted to give us the lesson which He wanted to give us without divulging what it was. Okay, God didn't want to divulge it, so it is excellent. So I really liked him. I really liked Dr. Khalid. And like I said, we spoke of him. I was supposed to actually, we were supposed to arrange something where he wanted me to speak on something to do with his institute. He wanted me to do something with him in Ramadan, but we didn't get a chance to get around to it. It was actually one of my followers on Twitter who got us in contact. Who got us in contact? He sent him my video essay of Quranic Islam versus inherited Islam, and he requested if we could meet up and have a conversation. Yeah, this is another person who I would really like to speak to. I felt, I mean, again, somebody else reached out to me and told me, why don't you speak with Dr. Shehzad? Because a number of tweets that I had on the Quranic preservation, and my conclusion that the closest of the recitations to the Prophet's recitation is Hafs, though it's not perfect. Um, and that was sent, one of the my followers on Twitter sent that to him, and he said, he sent back, would you like to have a speak to him on WhatsApp? And I wanted to get around to it. Something happened and I didn't get around to it. And also I feel a little bit, because to speak to somebody who's already put a lot of their work out there without actually um, engaging with it yourself, um, it's like okay. I don't know. I would just rather. I've been going through his series on the Quran preservation. So it's on YouTube. So he's got a long series on that. So I've been listening to that, just so I can understand everything that he says, because I don't understand how he comes to the conclusion of Hafs being the Qira'ah Amma. I don't understand that. So I want to understand that first, and then maybe I have something that I can speak to him about, rather than him having to explain to me everything that he thinks, um, when everything that he thinks is already being put online. Do you understand? And I can just get to grips with that first, and then I can come to him, sort of understanding his thing, and then we can sort of speak there. Um, so I want to go through that first. But so far, from what I've listened, um, he's discussing all the different narrations surrounding the Quranic preservation and the Sab'a Ahruf and these things, and he's basically finding problems with all of the narrations. Okay, which is true, but here's the issue. The issue is that basically we have a whole sort of like tabaqa, what's it called, a whole generation, a whole couple of generations in narrations, and the how the narrations have come, okay, from the prophet, the companions, and then we have a few generations later. It comes down through different levels. We have a whole couple of levels where we can basically problematize everybody. Okay, and so I feel that that's why he's fallen into just this narrator is problematic, this is problematic. If you do that, everybody's problematic, and that's basically what happens in Sunni hadith methodology. They will have the narration that they want to keep. They will say, okay, this person here, so and so said this about him, but we accept him because Bukhari accepted him. This other person said he's thiqa, he's trustworthy. This other person said this. So and then when we want to reject the narration, we will bring out all the problems, and that's what happens. Okay, so there's a whole sort of like couple of generations of people that when we want to accept the narration, we find excuses. When we want to reject it, we find excuses, because it's all been there. Okay, for every person, you're even Bukhari, right? Well, if you want, you can say, okay, Bukhari, the whole of his thing, we reject it. Why? Because Abu Hatim al-Razi rejected Bukhari. He said he's da'if. He said, he put Imam al-Bukhari among the du'afa, right? So now all the narrations which come from Bukhari, we can say are weak, right? So everybody's been problematized. Okay, you can find the problem about everybody, or you can a lot of the people, you can say no, we can accept them for some excuse. Okay, so I feel that from what I've seen from Dr. Shahzad, he's going through a lot of and it gets repetitive, right? So I'm listening to this and it's just repetitive a bit. Okay, he's just saying, okay, this person, this is a critique on this narrator, this critique on this narrator, so we can't accept this narration. Then he goes to another narration, says, okay, this narration has this person, and this is a critique about this narrator, and this is a critique about this person, so we can't accept this. And then he goes to the next narration. So it's just that, okay, and it's something which um, um, it takes more hadith studies, I think, and it takes more than if you're gonna revitalize it, or sort of like really try to get the truth, wade through the truth from all the narrations. You need to have a different methodology than just listening to what um, people said about each other, who had never met each other, right, before. So all of these criticisms of narrators are just people speaking about others whom often they've never met. often they don't know anything about, and just the rumor mills and stuff. Um, so that's my impression so far. But I'm going through that, and maybe I should just, not even bother doing that and just speak to him anyway, because um, he sort of sent me a message in that way through somebody telling me, yeah, hey, he would like to speak with you. So maybe I'll try to do that and arrange that some way. But yeah, he's another one. Yeah, astaghfirullah, we can't add. This is about the adding the harf majroor. But anyway, look, listen to his argument yourself. Go to the learn Quran Arabic, learn Quranic Arabic channel, and listen to what he says about listen to how he tries to explain the wife beating verse, as it's called. This is very insightful. Yes, this is closer to what inshallah I'll be explaining. This is much closer. Ocean is amazing. Yeah. Yeah, see, this is what basically what I mean. I mean, it really just means darb. Yes, it can be used in many different ways, but every Arab person at the time when that verse was revealed would have understood what وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ means. It just means hit them. It really does. Okay. Um, the Arab men used to hit their wives, right? And they used to call that darb, right? They used to call, when a man would hit his wife, to go ضربتها, right? I hit her, right? Um, there's no mystery here, to be honest. There's no mystery in terms of the what is, otherwise, God has used the worst word, for those who say that it can't mean hit. Then God has used the very, and God would never want that, right? Or never, would never command that. Then we say that, this is one of the worst verses in the Quran in terms of word choice, right? um but it's much simpler than that. Okay, it really is. It's if you accept the verse as it is and just give it a bit more thought, um, and sort of understand a few other things, background things, and it's not that difficult to see um, why that would be something which God recommends. I have no idea what that means. Um, how did I learn Islam and how was my journey? Yes. So I'm from Sudanese background, so we sort of like have in our background the more the Ash'ari, Maliki, more Sufi tradition. That's what I grew up in. So at a certain age, I sort of, to give you like the brief summary, at a certain age, I started to you know um, sort of become more religious, more spiritual. I learned the Maliki fiqh from a few teachers in the traditional way, so I'm just at their feet. Um, I used to go to a lot of dhikr circles. So in London, there were a few regular dhikr circles which I used to attend. I was taught the Shifa of Qadi Iyad, and I was taught the Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam Ghazali. So I studied both of those books um, properly with a teacher. And like I said, the Maliki fiqh, and I studied the Ash'ari Aqeedah and all of this. And then, eventually you start to see the flaws in a lot of these things. And I just became sort of more aloof from the scholarship, and just wanting to sort of like stick with sort of like prayer and spirituality and praying and improving character. The sort of like the Sufi journey. So I stuck with that more than um, sort of the learning. Um, so I kept on reading a lot and studying a lot, and then um, it was by chance that I came across Adnan Ibrahim and Hassan al Maliki, and a lot of what they said was very close to how I saw things. So that's basically it in brief. I also did that in Medina when because I was in Saudi Arabia for quite a while. In Medina, I studied. I went to the College of the Prophet's Mosque, and I did a course there, and a chaplaincy course. But of course, there's a lot more to it than that. Who would be Abu Lahab if you read the Quran without any influence from outside? Good question. So Abu Lahab, if you read it without any sort of, if you were in a desert island somewhere, right, and you just picked up and you found the Quran and you're reading it and you come to this, you'd say, okay, who is Abu Lahab, right? So you wouldn't understand it as being um, um, having to be an exact person. So that whole surah can be read as an allegory about um, um, anger, right? So Abu Lahab, the father of flames, right? And everybody knows that when you talk about in terms of like emotions or vices, right? Fire. It's equated a lot of time with anger, right? He's got a fiery temper, right? A fiery temper. He's angry. Somebody who gets angry. So Abu Lahab, the father of flames. Just the fact that it's even used that. Of course, his name wasn't Abu Lahab itself, right? So that was a laqab that was given to him. So Abu Lahab, tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab, right? Perish the two hands of the father of flames. Watab ma aghna anhu maluhu ma kasab. His the wealth which he has and what he earns, it won't profit him. The person who is always inflamed by anger, okay, these things will not profit him. Okay, they will come to ruin, right? سيصلى نارا ذات لهب. He will enter a flame ذات لهب, right? That's made from lahab, from himself, right? So he will enter the fire because of his anger, right? ذات لهب. It's sort of stoked from his own anger, right? All of the it's a big vice, anger. You can do a lot of harm comes from it, right? سيصلى نارا ذات لهب وامرأته حمالة الحطب. It says, and his partner, okay, حمالة الحطب, the one who stokes the flames, because you often find that, right? You can find somebody who's very, very an angry person, right? And then you have somebody else who knows how dangerous this angry person is, right? And so rather than sort of like being in his way, it's like they say, right? Better to be the right hand man of the devil than in his path. So there are people who are like this. They will be with an angry person and they will stoke their anger against others so that it doesn't touch them. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ, the one who carries the fuel for this person's flame, right? That they are also culpable, right? They're also culprits in the damage that this person does. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ فِي جِيدِهَا حَبْلٌ مِّن مَسَدٍ. Around the neck is like a rope tied to the person. So this person is sort of like tied to the angry person, right? Because they've tied it themselves. They've put that noose. They won't cut that rope, that connection with this angry person, right? They won't get away from them. So the surah can be read like that very easily. But of course, look, I mean, one of the things that people in the Quranic sort of community, they will say, that the Quran is for all times and all places. Not every part of it, because look, God didn't have a word count with the Quran. There was no word count. So God could have just revealed the things which everybody needs to know, and that's it. Okay, and then not spoken at all or addressed anything that happened in the Prophet's time to the people then. That would be a very aloof thing to do. You know, that would be a very sort of like uncaring thing for God to do. He's revealing the book to the people then, right? And sort of like being sort of like completely detached from the people then, not caring about the people then, and only revealing things which are to do with universal truths and universal values that will last for all times and all places, right? That would be a very aloof thing to do, very sort of like ungodly thing. Okay, in terms of the qualities of Allah, who is close and transcendent. He's both. So the Quran does address things which are uniquely for that time. and uniquely for the Prophet, and uniquely for the people there. Right, but in all of that there is a lesson, which is why even though it addresses it's anchored in that time, it's at the same time it's completely above it in many ways, because it doesn't mention any places really. It mentions Mecca, it mentions Yathrib, that's about it, right? What else is mentioned from Arabia at the time? What tribes are mentioned? None really. Quraysh in one surah, which is irrelevant to the rest, really, of the Quran. It's not like they're not mentioned anywhere else, right? Names, who's mentioned? There were so many tribes and so many places in Arabia at the time, but the Quran doesn't mention any of those tribes, none of those places, none of the people really. Okay, and because of that, it transcends that time as well. Okay, but it seems so it can be read in that time, and it can be read as something transcendent above that time. So it has this sort of dynamic way of it, right? You read it, and you can say الذين, وقال الذين كفروا, and those who have kafru said this, all right? And that will be something that actually happened then, and it will be something which is part of the state of kufr. It's something that it's related to the state of kufr. So the Quran doesn't talk about the tribes and the thing. It talks about mostly different states: the state of iman, the state of kufr, the state of nifaq. Right. So it speaks about these. It speaks about the hearts rather than the actual individuals and the people there. So Abu Lahab can be read. Maybe I didn't do a good job of it there, but it can be read, and I read it as well like that, as speaking about anger. Okay, about the person who's inflamed. These short surahs deal with, sometimes they deal with these kind of things. Yeah, this is when I lose the connection. Okay. Yeah. We can't hear anything. I need to get to the bottom of these. Yeah, sorry, I'll get you updated. I mean, just watch it again. It's a very short update. I'll probably end it soon because nobody's coming on. I just want to get to the end of his comment section. Yeah, so this question, the istighatha, no, it can definitely be shirk. This sort of like asking the dead for help. This can be taken them as aliha, right? So again, the problem is we don't. Everything is pushed together into shirk. Everything is being pushed together into shirk. Whereas the Quran, it has some very specific terms. So it talks about, for example, ibadah min dunillah, to be in ibadah min dunillah, right? And it doesn't have ibadah ma'allah, because that is shirk. So instead of saying ibadah ma'allah, so ibadah servitude with Allah, that's never used in the Quran. The reason why it's never used, because instead you had the specific word for that is shirk, right? Shirk is to be in ibadah to others with Allah, right? But it has this other thing which talks about ibadah min dunillah, ya'buduna min dunillah, right? Ya'buduna min dunillah, and people just say this is shirk. Okay, it's not shirk. It's not shirk, right? Because Allah says in other verses, yushrikuna ma'allah, that they do shirk with Allah, this or that, the other. Okay, but this is a slightly different thing. Then you have dua ma'allah, those who do dua, which is to invoke, not just to prayers, but to actually invoke. Like when you say he invokes the law, I will invoke the law against you. That sort of thing is also dua, right? So there's dua ma'allah, and there's dua min dunillah, right? So you have these two things where it's ma'allah and min dunillah, both for ibadah, right, and for shirk. But for ibadah and for dua. But for ibadah, the ma'allah is actually called shirk, so it's not used, right? So you have these things. So for example, the the golden calf, as I've mentioned before, they took that as an ilah, right? So never in the Quran does the Bani Israel, they're never said to have been in ibadah to the golden calf. They were not in ibadah to it, but they took it as an ilah. They took it as an ilah. Yeah, that's why the Quran was اتخذوا العجل, اتخذوا العجل, اتخذوا العجل regularly. Every time it talks about it, they took the ijl. They took it what? Took it as an ilah. أرأيت إلهك الذي ظلت عليه عاكفا, as Musa said to Samiri, do you see this ilah which you took? Do you see this ilah which you took? Um, so when you talk about the this dua ma'allah, that's what this is. Okay, so they're doing dua ma'allah, but it isn't the same as shirk. It's still a sin, still a big sin, right? But it's not thing, which is why when that verse says وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَدْعُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ, and those who do not do dua with Allah another ilah, okay, um, and they don't kill the nafs which Allah has made sacrosanct, and they don't commit zina, and then talks about those who make tawbah from this, that they will be forgiven. Those who make tawbah from these things, they can still be forgiven, right? Whereas Allah said that He does not forgive shirk, does not forgive shirk, right? Because why? Because this du'a ma'Allah isn't the same as shirk, isn't it? Shirk. I should maybe try to do a stream about that. But these are 4 different things mentioned in the Quran, which we typically in our minds associate all of that as just shirk. All of it is just lumped together. This is shirk. Okay, but it isn't. I mean, these are specific words that God is using. One of the academics which I see on Twitter has actually mentioned that he has also he said that he split shirk into four groups, and I mentioned to him in a sort of like I put some considerations for him and tell him, look, I've also split these things into 4, but it's not that but then it's not the shirk that I've split into 4. So shirk is one thing, and then there are 3 other categories mentioned in the Quran. Okay, and they are not shirk. They are separate. So this is one of the sins. It's one of the sins. But again, are you in ibad? The key thing, just if you put this in your minds, the key thing about shirk, if you want to understand shirk, is there ibadah happening? Is there servitude? Is there servitude happening? Okay, somebody in servitude to something with God, right? Servitude, and to be in servitude with something, it has to be something which can actually command you and tell you to do this or not do that. That's why the whole of the conversations in the Quran on Judgment Day, where it talks about the الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا and شُرَكَاء, it's all about, you can see clearly it's talking about the leaders and those who followed them. Okay, those who commanded and those who were led astray by them. And the مغضوب عليهم and الضالين, if you think of it in terms of Surah Al-Fatiha, says غير المغضوب عليهم, not those upon whom is your anger, nor of those who were led astray. Right, the ones upon whom are the anger, these are the idols. The ones who are led astray, these are the idolaters who obeyed them. So that's what I would say about that. Okay, it's still something which is condemned in the Quran. This is definitely something condemned in the Quran, but it's under a different category from shirk. Okay, it's under a different category from shirk. Yeah, I heard about this. Salman Rushdie. Let me put that up. This comment. My God, this laptop is slow. Show comment. No, you don't want to show it. Salman Rushdie was stabbed and knifed in New York a few days ago. Is it what Allah wants us to do? No, of course not. All right. So, there's one thing which I actually wanted to speak to. Who was it at that time that I wanted to mention this to? One of those ex-Muslims. I tried to go on his stream. I was there for a little bit, but I think maybe the connection was poor, and so I didn't get to speak much. But what they call to, so a lot of these ex-Muslims and non-Muslims, they say, hey, why, if you don't want to listen to something, if you don't want to see these blasphemous things, then just leave. Okay, that's what you should do. Well, that's exactly what the Quran says to do. That's exactly what the Quran says to do. Let me actually try to pull out the verse. Hold on, please. Yeah, so it says this. This is a verse in Surah An-Nisa, 140. وَقَدْ نُزِّلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الْكِتَابِ أَنْ إِذَا سِمِعْتُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ يُكْفَرُ بِهَا وَيُسْتَهْزَأُ بِهَا فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا مَعَهُمْ حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرُهُ. Right? So it says, let me pull up a translation here. What do we have? Um, He has already revealed to you in the book that when you hear Allah's revelations being denied or ridiculed, then do not sit in that company unless until they engage in a different topic, or else you will be like them. So it's as simple as that, right? Somebody who's engaged in anything like any kufr, and again, I mean, Salman Rushdie, I haven't read his book. I don't know if he really was ridiculing the prophet or etc. But even if it's ridiculing the prophet or anything like that, the Quran just says, leave them until they speak about a different topic. It means that it means, and even that word, until they speak about a different topic, it means you can go back and sit with them. If you have a group of friends and they start mocking the religion and making fun of the messengers of God, anything like that, okay? Um, you leave. When they start speaking about something else, go back to speaking about football or a movie, you can come back and sit with them. Come back and sit with them. That's literally what the verse says, right? So I mean, it's just ridiculous that we don't understand these basic basic things. And there are two verses which talk about that in the Quran, not just one. So I don't know if he was a Muslim or not Muslim, and to be honest, I haven't kept up with the news about that. So I don't know. Yeah, I really like Dr. Shahzad's Salim as well. I mean, I saw his last appearance with Mufti Abu Layth, where he talked about some of the other things which he's involved in. Because the first time he went on his mind trap, it was just to talk about the Quran, right? I just realized I was behind the chat and my comment won't make sense. Would today's Al Saud be considered as Quraysh in terms of power and privilege? In a way, yes. In a way, it's not really a very apt analogy. I mean, Quraysh were considered sacred for a lot of the Arabs as well. They were considered the people of God. The Arabs at the time, a lot of them considered them to be the people of God, especially after the incident of the elephant and the birds. Okay, even more so, the Arabs started to revere Quraysh as being really the people of God. Even they themselves, Quraysh, when people came to Mecca to do Hajj, and people would go out to Arafah, Quraysh would not go out to Arafah because Arafah was sort of outside of the sort of the area of Mecca, and they would consider themselves to be sort of like the priests of Mecca, and say it's not right that we should leave Mecca, right? So they would actually not even go to Arafah. Yeah, so it's a different thing altogether. Al Saud are just seen as sort of like the kings, right? Um, the kings, and a lot of their thing is based on fear. You when I was there, people would tell me, "Hey, don't talk about this, otherwise you'll be taken behind the sun," which is their way of saying you'll be in prison and never get out. You know, so it's a very different situation. Thank you. That will have explanation. What's up with the psychology of ex-Muslims? Why are they so obsessed with cursing and insulting Islam? Well, I think to be honest, it's a few who sort of like poisoned the water early on. Not early on, to be honest. They were better. Some who were better. For example, Hassan Radwan. Hassan Radwan was fantastic. He never used to curse. He used to have some very intelligent things to say. Very reasoned, balanced voice in the ex-Muslim community. But then others came along um, who were just ridiculing, insulting, and they will say now that they were in a very angry place at the time. Okay, um, I don't know how much of an excuse that is. Okay, I understand that somebody can, um, when they've sort of like left Islam or something, they can feel very betrayed, very hurt, very angry, go through a lot of things, and then I can get that. But since then, I think they've fed off each other. Especially, I see that some of the the ex-Muslim scene and the sort of like some of the more belligerent da'wah people, they've helped each other grow. They've helped each other grow. They've just fed off each other, right? And then become big together, and sort of they're obscuring everybody else. They're obscuring other things. So that's what I see. Um, but they give each other material basically. They are the best thing that happen to them. Of so um, some of these ex-Muslims, the best thing that happens to them is that they have these sort of very fanatical, sort of like the Muslim speaking, and the fanatic Muslims, they increasing their following by constantly talking about their trying to refute these ex-Muslims. That's how it is. That's how I see it anyway. All right, okay. So I've gotten to the end of these comment sections. I've got 3 people still with me online, but I think we'll end it there. I didn't expect to be going on for an hour and almost an hour and a half, but it's been nice. It's good that I finally got to get back on stream, but we'll end it there unless anybody has anything else to say or somebody wants to come on for a quick hello. Otherwise, I think we will end it there. And inshallah, my travels will be over in about 10 days, and I'll be back back home. And then I'll probably try to, like I said, I'm going to try to buy myself, move on to MacBooks, then one, and then hopefully I'll be able to do a few more things. All right, okay. And yes, Hector, thank you so much for you being here as well. Okay, Salaam alaikum, and take care and enjoy the rest of your day or evening.